Hello there, my name is Justin from Day Night, and today we're going to be ranking all of the Elden Ring weapon buffs. These are incantations or sorceries that applies either an elemental or a status effect to your weapon, usually increasing its damage or providing extra abilities to it. All of the tests will be done with Margit the Fell Omen as the boss, and all of the elemental statuses will be applied to a Twin Blade at plus 25. So let's jump right into it with our lowest ranking status effect. Alright, as for the lowest on our list, we have the Bloodflame Blade, which I know is a bit strange because we did a full video dedicated to the Bloodflame Blade and how effective it can be. At that point, I believe I was under-leveled for the Morgott fight, so I was just really impressed with the damage output that it can do over time, when realistically, its cast time is super quick, but so is how long it lingers on the weapon. You can usually only get a couple of hits in before it fades. And in that meantime, if you're able to hit your opponent, it does do a pretty decent amount of damage over time, but if you're over-relying on it, or like I'm doing here, I'm trying to make a video on it, you're constantly trying to put it on the weapon, and you know it's not going to last for that long, it's not going to linger, so you're going to try to cram as many hits in as possible, and usually that leads, and for me anyways, that leads me to play quite sloppily. I'm trying to get as many hits as possible, and I'm ignoring his attacks, I'm ignoring his tells, I'm just going in to try to do damage, and that's not the way to do most of these bosses in this game. It's great to be aggressive, but it's not great to be overly aggressive that it gets yourself killed, which I think I actually lose to Margit in this fight when I'm getting the footage for this. But yeah, Bloodflame Blade is good, does good damage, but it is the lowest on our list today. Alright, next up we have the Scholar's Armament, or the Magical Weapon Effect. I believe this is good, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it does scale well with intelligence. But for me personally, for applying it to the blade, it didn't do as much damage as I was hoping it was going to do, or it didn't have any other like lingering effects that makes me want to use it. Granted, I'm using it against Margit, I'm using all these weapon buffs against Margit, so maybe there is a boss in the game that is incredibly weak to magic damage, and this would be wonderful for that boss. But for me personally, in testing all these buffs one after another, it didn't pack the punch that I wanted to do, or again, didn't have any sort of lingering or extra abilities that comes with it. Not a bad weapon upgrade. I like it better than Bloodflame Blade because it stays on the blade and you can focus on your dodges and hits versus needing to cram as many in as possible. So not a bad upgrade. I prefer it over no upgrade at all. It's just a little lower on this list. Alright, next up we have the Holy Armament. I believe it's called Ordered Blade in this game. Holy has always been a wonderful damage type to put on weapons, even back to DS3 when it was like shiny and white. Ordered Blade, yes, that's what it's called. I enjoy it. I think it's going to be great for regular engagements, especially if you're going into a catacombs that are just littered with skeletons, that way you don't have to worry about double tapping them. You just wipe them with Order's Blade and they're good to go. They're dead for the count, down for the count. But in this boss fight, again, it didn't wow me. It definitely does enhance the damage output of the weapon, and it's nice being able to throw it on the blade and forget about it and just swing it around. But again, other than like a flat number, it didn't add that much to the encounter. Again, not bad. Prefer it over nothing at all. I would definitely apply this before a boss fight if I had it and nothing else. But again, it just didn't wow me. Plus, there are certain bosses in the game, like Elden Beast and Radagon, that actually heal off of holy damage. So some of the boss fights in this game, this is not going to be the way to go. So yeah, it gets a little bit lower on this list. Alright, next up we have Poison Armament, I believe is the name of it. It gives you the poison, the green status effect. I had really high hopes for this because, again, I didn't expect it to give a bolstery number for its damage output more than the other ones, but I was really excited for it just because I wanted it to proc poison at a fast rate. Obviously, poison is like the black sheep to Scarlet Rot, which is the far superior status ailment than poison. But I still was hopeful that it was going to inflict poison and it would just start ticking down as the fight was going on. I believe I'm able to get a poison proc on Margit, but I think it's way later in the fight, and it doesn't damage him as much as I would like it to for that. Yeah, I just got him, the poison. And again, it's ticking down, which is great, but it just, again, the damage over time just isn't good enough for me. I like it better than Bloodflame Blade for a damage over time ailment, just because, again, you set it and forget about it, but it just, yeah, for it doing that sort of damage over time, it just doesn't rock my socks off. So yeah, kind of mid-tier ailment upgrade. Alright, up next we have the Frozen Armament. I quite enjoy Frozen Armament. Again, not my favorite, but anything that can get a stack of Frostbite in this game is so powerful. Frostbite is so good in this game, purely for the fact that it's going to start skyrocketing your damage numbers if you're able to get a Frostbite proc. At some point, I would love to do a Darkmoon Greatsword playthrough of the game just because of how strong Frostbite is. I mean, we all know with all the Ghost Flame weapons and all that jazz that it's a great status effect. So with Frozen Armament having the ability to proc Frostbite, you already know it has to be higher up on the list than most. Flat damage increases aren't much to scoff at, but yeah, the ability to get that Frostbite tick is truly what makes this upgrade better than the rest on this list so far. So I'm going to put these both in the same slot. I thought about doing them individually, but realistically they're pretty close to the same thing. It's the Electrify Armament and then the Red Lightning version of it that casts it on your entire body. I believe the damage output and the lightning damage is more potent with Electrify Armament, but the other one, I think it's like Vyke's Lightning Bolt or something like that, it casts it on your weapon and your body as well, so you're getting a player buff as well as a weapon buff, but I think the weapon buff is stronger on the base Electrify Armament variant. Both wonderful, and they're really fun to play with. Every time I use it, I think of back in the day of DS3 of just using like lightning paper and lightning resin on my weapons before I step into the boss fights. Always takes me back with nostalgia, and I think it's just, it's a sick looking ornament upgrade, just zapping your opponent with lightning. But it does work well, and I haven't really encountered a boss in the game yet that is strictly, resistant to lightning damage. So yeah, I think it's an all-around great upgrade. Comes in a little bit higher on the list than most. The runner-up for today, and hands down one of my favorite weapon buffs in Souls period, is Bloodflame Blade. I love Bloodflame Blade. This is the first weapon or ornament upgrade that I got in my first ever run through Elden Ring, and I had to get it. I researched the wiki to try to get some weapon buffs because, again, playing DS3 a lot, that's the way I played. I played the way of a paladin where I upgraded my weapons and striking combat skills and abilities, but I also wanted to have a minor in faith scaling so I can use sorceries and incantations to buff my weapon with elements. So I wanted to play as the paladin, and I transferred that same want and desires into Elden Ring. So I went straight to the wiki to start looking at weapon upgrades that I can cast onto my weapon with faith, and just fell in love. As soon as I saw Bloodflame Blade, I ran straight to Liurnia, like I had to get it, and I used it for most of my playthrough. The ability to get blood ticks, as well as like burning your opponent, which also can be increased with Flame Grant Me Strength. It is a wonderful, wonderful ornament upgrade. It comes in as a runner-up today, as for obvious reasons, as I'm sure everyone knows what the best weapon element upgrade in the game is right now, but with this being a close second, you already know. Love Bloodflame Blade, comes in at number 2. And coming in at number 1, of course it is the Seppuku weapon skill, or just straight up blood affinity on your weapon. Bleed is so powerful in Elden Ring. You already know at some point it's going to get patched, as they did the same thing with Carthage Rouge in Dark Souls 3. But Bleed is just so powerful. You cannot refrain from stating that it is the best weapon element again. Look at that. 2 heavies and then immediately bleed proc, and now Margit is at half health. Bleed is so powerful. Everything that does bleed is so prominent in this game. There is no other weapon element in the game that can touch bleed. So as long as it's this prominent, that's what everyone's gonna use. It's really unfortunate because I don't want them to nerf bleed. I just wish that they would boost up the other elements to make more replayability and more options versus, like, would you rather beat the boss and have a really easy time, or would you rather beat the boss and really struggle? Because that's the difference between Bleed and every other element in the game. It's that staggering. But yeah, Bleed easily takes this at number 1. Well, there you have it. There is our rankings of the Elden Ring weapon buff, weapon incantations, weapon sorceries, anything that grants either a flat-out damage boost, an ability, or just an elemental upgrade to your weapons and your armaments. If you like what you see and you're new around here, please consider giving us a subscribe button, the Omega Fist Fire Thorn Punch, as it's free. It really helps us out. And comment down below any other Soulsborne or content-related things you would like to see from us. We love ranking things and making lists, but we're also very interested in doing speedruns and challenge runs of the various Soulsborne games, so please leave your recommendations down below. But without further ado, thank you so much for coming out today, and we'll catch you guys all in the next video.